All right, guys, section 2 of chapter 5, solving inequalities by multiplication and division. So before, we solved equations by multiplication and division, and guess what we're going to do now? You guessed it, we're going to solve linear inequalities using multiplication and division. It's very similar to what we did with solving equations, but there's a couple little subtle things that are very, very important that you have to remember. So we're going to talk about what the multiplication and division property of inequalities are in this section. So if you multiply each side of an inequality by a positive number, the inequality remains true. So if you multiply both sides of this inequality of 4 is greater than 2, if you multiply both sides by 3, you're just making each side 3 times as big. So the right side is still going to be greater than the left side. Notice that the direction of the inequality remains the same because it's still true. If you multiply each side of an inequality by a negative number, watch this. If I have 7 is less than 9, that is true. But if I multiply both sides by negative 2, that would give you negative 14 and negative 18. And if you left the inequality symbol as negative, or as less than rather, that would not be true because negative 14 is to the right of negative 18 on the number line, so it's not less than negative 18. So what do we do to fix it? You flip the inequality symbol. So remember, when you multiply both sides of an inequality by a negative number, remember negative is like taking the opposite, so you have to do the opposite sign in between, okay? So these examples demonstrate the multiplication property of inequalities. And basically what it is if you multiply both sides of an inequality by a positive number, the inequality still holds true and it's fine. But if you multiply both sides of an inequality by a negative symbol, you have to, or by negative, you have to flip the inequality symbol. Okay, so that property also holds true for less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. All right, so let's try some. Of the students surveyed at Madison High School, fewer than 84 said they had ever purchased an item online. This is about 1/8 of those surveyed. How many students were surveyed? Okay, so you know the number of students who have never purchased an item online and the portion of this number of the students surveyed. So I know that 1/8 times the actual number of students surveyed has to be less than 84 because it says that fewer than 84 said they never purchased an item online. So that's like n is less than 84. Not or equal to, because it didn't say 84 or less. They said fewer than 84. But they also said that that is actually 1/8 of the number of students surveyed. So if n represents the number of students surveyed, 1/8 of n should be less than 84. Okay, so now we just solve this inequality for n. So you have your original inequality, and you can multiply by each side by 8 or 8 over 1, because when you have a fraction multiplying your variable, you just multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the fraction. Okay, so you get n is less than 672. So that means that the number of students surveyed is less than 672. So to check it, check the endpoint with 672 in the direction of the inequality with a value less than 672. So is 672 times 1/8 equal to 84? Yeah, that means you got the right endpoint if it satisfies that. Then check another point that's less than 672. 0 is usually an easy number to check, and that works. So I know I got the right thing there. So the solution set is n such that n is less than 672, so fewer than 670 students were surveyed. All right, here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause the video. All right, we're back. So this mountain in Malaysia has the greatest concentration of wild orchids on Earth. It contains more than 750 species, or about 1/4 of all the orchid species in Malaysia. How many orchid species are in Malaysia? So it contains 750 species, more than, so that's greater than the number of species. Oops, I did that backwards. So the number of species is greater than 750. And that's about 1/4 of all the orchid species in Malaysia. So if S represents the number of orchid species in Malaysia, that's 1/4 of S should be greater than 750. So to solve that, multiply both sides by 4/1. And I get S is greater than 3,000. Okay, so the set would be the set of all S such that S is greater than 3,000. And that means that there are more than 3,000 species of orchids in Malaysia. Cool stuff, huh? You can also use multiplicative inverses with the multiplication property of inequalities to solve an inequality. So solve negative 3/7 r is less than 21 and graph the solution. All right? So the multiplicative inverse of negative 3/7 is negative 7/3. So multiply both sides by negative 7/3. These cancel. Okay, but notice since I multiplied each side by a negative number, I have to reverse the inequality symbol. And I get r is less or greater than negative 49. Here what you could do is cross-reduce the 21 and the 3 to make it a 7. And then 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. So you plot negative 49 with an open circle and shade the numbers greater than it. And here's the answer in set builder notation. All right, here's a couple for you to try. I'm going to do 2A and 2B. If you want to check 2C and 2D, that's fine. Go ahead and pause the video. All right, we're back. So negative n over 6 is less than or equal to 8. What you do is multiply both sides by negative 6. Okay, so the negative 6 and this negative 6 cancel each other out. You have n is less than or equal to negative 48. And if you graphed it, you have negative 48 on the number line, shaded it in circle, closed in circle rather, and it's less than, so you shade everything to the left. This one, if I have the original inequality, multiply both sides by its reciprocal, so negative 3/4. Those cross cancel. The 10 and the 4 cross reduce to a 5 and a 2. And the symbol reverses, and you would get positive 15 over 2. Okay. Now, when I did 2A, I don't think I reversed the inequality symbol. So it should be n is greater than or equal to negative 48. So sorry about that. So when you graph it, you would have shaded in at negative 48 and everything to the right. Okay, I hope that didn't cause any confusion. I just forgot to do that. Okay, alrighty. All right, that's it for this video. Please stay tuned for the second half. We'll see you on that one.